175 after the Nazi era. The criminalization of sexual relations between men in Germany did not end with the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. After World War II, Germany was remade by the Allied powers. It became two countries in 1949. These countries were on opposite sides of the Cold War. The Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany, had a liberal democratic constitution and was aligned with the United States. The German Democratic Republic, East Germany, was a communist state and aligned with the Soviet Union. After the war, the Allied powers forced the Germans to repeal Nazi statutes and laws. However, even though the Nazis had revised paragraph 175, the Allies allowed the revised version to remain in effect. This was because the statute had been part of the German criminal code before the Nazi era. East and West Germany used different versions of this statute. Within 1 year of its founding, East Germany chose to use the earlier, narrower version of paragraph 175. This version used the wording from 1871. The country also kept paragraph 175A, which criminalized certain non-consensual sexual acts between men. In 1957, East Germany stopped enforcing paragraph 175. It fully abolished both statutes in 1968. West Germany continued to use the 1935 Nazi version of paragraph 175, including 175A and 175B. At first, West German authorities vigorously enforced the statute. Between 1949 and 1969, 100,000 men were arrested under paragraph 175. Approximately 59,000 of them were ultimately convicted. Some of these men received prison sentences. The prison sentences were typically much shorter than during the Nazi era. In some cases, they lasted days or weeks. Other men did not serve time, but instead had to pay a fine. In 1969, West Germany de-emphasized enforcement of the statute. Paragraph 175 was dropped from the German Criminal Code in 1994 after East and West Germany reunited as the Federal Republic of Germany. What happened after liberation? Unlike Jewish survivors, many gay prisoners were not freed after the liberation of concentration camps by Allied forces. Paragraph 175 remained in effect in Germany, meaning that survivors of the camps could be rearrested and continued to be treated as criminals. They were often denied reparations or recognition as victims of the Holocaust. It wasn't until the 1970s and 1980s that activists reclaimed the pink triangle as a symbol of LGBTQ+ pride and resistance. Germany officially acknowledged the persecution of LGBTQ+ individuals under the Nazis in the 1980s, and in 2002, the German government formally apologized and pardoned those convicted under paragraph 175. Continued persecution after liberation. While Jewish survivors and other persecuted groups were recognized as victims of the Holocaust, gay men were often rearrested after liberation because paragraph 175, the German law criminalizing homosexuality, was still in effect. Some were sent directly to prison to serve out the remainder of their original sentences. Others faced continued stigma and discrimination, preventing them from accessing support, reparations, or acknowledgement as Holocaust survivors. Why weren't they recognized as victims? Homosexuality remained illegal in Germany, both in West and East Germany, long after the war. The Nazi version of paragraph 175, which made the law even harsher, was upheld in West Germany until 1969. Because of this, men who had been forced to wear the pink triangle were seen not as victims of Nazi persecution, but as criminals under existing German law. It wasn't until 2002 that Germany officially apologized and pardoned those convicted under paragraph 175 during the Nazi era. It took until 2017 for the German government to formally annul convictions of gay men under this law. Post from the President of the United States. It is deeply concerning when a sitting U.S. president posts Nazi symbols on social media because of the historical context, moral implications, and political consequences. Nazi symbols represent hate, and genocide symbols used by the Nazi regime are directly linked to one of history's worst atrocities, the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jewish people and millions of others, including LGBTQ+ individuals, disabled people, and political dissidents, were murdered. Displaying these symbols, even unintentionally, can legitimize or embolden hate groups and white supremacists. It signals to extremist groups. Far-right and neo-Nazi groups often appropriate Nazi-era symbols to signal their ideology. If a leader, especially the president, posts such a symbol, it may be seen as a dog whistle to extremists, whether intentionally or not. Given the rise of white nationalist movements in the U.S., any association with Nazi symbols can fuel radicalization and violence. It undermines democratic values. The United States fought against the Nazis in World War II, and American soldiers liberated concentration camps. The U.S. government historically opposes fascist and authoritarian ideologies. A president using Nazi imagery contradicts the values of freedom, democracy, and human rights that America claims to uphold. It disrespects Holocaust survivors and marginalized communities. Many Holocaust survivors, their families, and marginalized groups still experience discrimination and trauma from Nazi persecution. Posting Nazi symbols can reopen wounds, making people feel unsafe and targeted. Historical parallels to authoritarianism. Authoritarian leaders throughout history have used propaganda, symbols, and rhetoric to normalize extreme ideologies. If a U.S. president starts using Nazi symbols, it raises serious concerns about the erosion of democratic norms and the potential for authoritarian policies. Even if done without intent, a president posting Nazi symbols is dangerous and unacceptable. It either reflects ignorance of history or a deliberate political move, both of which have serious consequences for democracy, marginalized communities, and global stability.